Martin Tyler's absolutely fantastic, but does he know that Glenn Murray's got 64 pace in the game? So the easiest way to describe this is I'm a commentator that commentates on virtual football.
Listening to your voice, you're a natural commentator.
But one man that I always listen to is Johnny Cantor.
Oh, no.
BBC Sussex.
He's just jumped out of his chair, Johnny Cantor.
And I genuinely mean this. Like, I never thought I could be a commentator. I just was a case of over time, it just happened.
So, Brandon, welcome to the podcast. I have got a slight knowledge, but this is going to be a real education for Paul.
Yeah, I'm 60 next month, but don't let that put you off.
Give us a rundown on what you do.
Yeah, so thanks for having me first and foremost. I think the easiest way to describe this is I'm a commentator that commentates on virtual football, was called FIFA, now called EAFC, and I've been doing it for 7 years now, and basically I get to travel around the world, commentate on sort of FIFA tournaments with hundreds of thousands of dollars of prize won them, and they all get broadcasted on TV or on YouTube or on Twitch, it's called. And I'm a proud Brighton fan, been supporting the club for a long time, and I'm excited to educate you both because I think it's going to be a lot to unfold.
So first and foremost, how do you fall into this?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. So always loved football, always played football. Get to a stage where it's like, I'm not going to make it anywhere in terms of the professional career, but want to stay in the sport. And I thought...
The professional career, as in playing or commentating? Yeah,
like playing. Like
okay.
I was, you can always dream to play professional football, can't you? I was doing I went to Havant and Waterlooville, like in a sort of an academy set up down there. And I'll be honest, I played football that much that I sort of got sick of it. But I loved like playing FIFA at the time and watching football, and I was like, how can I stay in this sport? What could I do? And I thought, could I be a commentator? I never thought I could commentate, but I just thought, right, travel around the world, do something you love and follow a sport you love. So I made the decision at that time to basically pick up a dictaphone, a microphone, and I used to go to Bognor Regis Town games, who were my local club, and used to go down there and commentate, and basically...
For yourself?
For the club at the time and for myself, and I also was studying with Albion in the community on the scholarship program, playing futsal for 2 years, and through that I had unbelievable access to the media. So I used to get media box rights at the Amex, and I used to take my dictaphone in, and I used to do like pretend Sky Sports updates, like 15 minutes in here. I mean, you might have been playing at the time. 15 minutes in here. Brighton nil, Derby County nil. Just getting used to commentating, getting used to speaking.
And you'd reflect on that. You go home.
I'd literally upload it onto YouTube. Like, it would sound like the audio, it was terrible, but it was just the experience of doing it. And at that point, I was like, right, I'm doing this. What am I going to do in terms of university? So I decided to study journalism at university, and I went from the South Coast all the way to Manchester, because I was like, there's football clubs in Manchester, there's opportunities in Manchester. So I did that, and it was at that time in Manchester where I was still doing non-league football, from Curzon, Ashton to FC United of Manchester, started a podcast, and then I fell into basically commentating on FIFA at the time, yeah.
Yeah, because that begs the question, listening to your voice, you're a natural commentator, so people will wonder why you're not commentating on Sky and TNT and Radio 5 Live and all the rest of it.
Because it doesn't pay as much.
So is this a better option for you, doing what you're doing now?
It's a great question, and it's one that I always get asked at the time, and I'm flattered that people think that I've got a voice for football. I listen to the Peter Durys, the Martin Tylers, the Derek Rays, and I think, oh my God, like these guys are unbelievable. But I think there's a number of reasons. I think one, I would love to transition in time. I feel like I'm coming through with like a demographic of young football fans who watch what I do and maybe can resonate with me. And hopefully the ones that are growing up with me now, if I was to move into football in years to come, they will be like, oh God, I remember that guy. I used to commentate on virtual football. Now he commentates on the real football. So I'd say it's in the plans. I'd love to do it. I think right now this esports gaming world is in like a crazy boom, and you're seeing it across the world. Like Manchester City have their own EAFC pro players. Galatasaray have got players. There's all these tournaments taking place at the moment, and so many big stakeholders are getting involved, like the Champions League, the Premier League. So right now it's like, why do I want to move? Why do I want to move forward? But 100%, I think with time it will come. And I also think as well, there's probably people out there in the traditional media that might not take what I do seriously. But if you closed your eyes and listened, I feel like you would think that you're just watching football, you know, and you wouldn't think that you're watching a match of EAFC.
Just going back to Paul's question there, your voice says you sounds like a commentator. Is that something that you worked on?
Honestly.
Or is it just natural?
I don't know. Like, honestly, I generally mean this. Like, I never thought I could be a commentator. I just was a case of you just over time. It just happened. Like, and whatever voice I have, however I turn into it in broadcast is just, it's just come with time.
Do you know what? It's a really interesting, inspiring story, because basically you took the bull by the horns and you made yourself what you are today. You see a lot of youngsters want to get involved in the game and kind of, I would like to do this, but never really do anything about it, whereas you actually went out there and made it happen.
Well, the fact is, it's in the nice way possible. You start out and there are people that are a bit like, you know, what are you doing? You know, I remember when I started commentating on FIFA back in FIFA 16, FIFA 17 at the time.
Would you have been one of the first to do this?
No, so at the time there was other commentators who would commentate on loads of different esports games who were doing it and doing some FIFA, but also they were just employing football commentators, you know, to get that voice, to get that sound, but in the nicest way. You know, Martin Tyler's absolutely fantastic, but does he know that Glenn Murray's got, you know, 64 pace in the game? Sorry, Glenn.
That's been polite.
No, you know what I mean? Like, there's intricacies. There's football, and then there's like the gaming side, the ultimate team side, and you know, these guys have got fantastic voices. But I guess you could argue that we came in at the time. Me and one of my really good sort of close friends at the time at university, we both started commentating together. We just sort of made our own style that hadn't been done before. So you could argue, yeah, absolutely. But I remember when I first started out and people were like, you know, people probably took the mickey a little bit, like, you know, what's this all about? Like, you're commentating on FIFA in his like uni room, like when most uni students are out having fun and doing whatever. But I don't know, at the time it was just like this could go somewhere, and you know, 7-8 years onwards, it really has gone somewhere.
The other thing that people of a certain generation will be inspired by is the way that you built up your profile. I mean, for want of a better word, the way you built this brand for yourself. How did you do that?
Again, it's still something I'm figuring out now. Like, you know,
because the numbers are spectacular, aren't they? What have you got? 3 million followers.
Yeah,
is that across all the platforms?
Yeah. So I mean, social media for me, it's part of the parcel. You know, do I enjoy it all the time? Not really, but like, it's especially as my type of commentator compared to maybe a traditional type of commentator. It's where the people are, like on all these platforms from YouTube to TikTok and Instagram. So it's a case of I'm still trying to figure out what it is now. But you know, I'll post these clips of me commentating on virtual football and put like a commentary camera on there, and people are still having that same like attachment to it. It's like, oh my god, like what a moment, you know. Yeah,
and I'm intrigued by your commentary style as well, because the one thing you hear people complain about these days is particularly with TV commentary. I don't know if
he's going to have a go at me here.
No, on the you don't do this. I mean, on the contrary, people complain that TV football commentators now talk too much around the game, and they're joshing with the co-commentator, and they're talking about issues around the players, and instead of concentrating on the live action. Now, I'm thinking that in your job you can only concentrate on the live action, what's actually happening on the field of play. Is that right?
But to be fair, I imagine in FIFA or EFC, there's more excitement.
Yeah,
it's more end to end.
It's a unique commentary style, like, because at the end of the day, it is football, and I'm going to, you know, go, Mbappe scored, you know, but there's also like, whoever's holding the controller, there is a story there that this guy might be like, I don't know, 18, 20 years of age, he's made $700,000 in the last year of playing, he's done this, he's done that. But then there's also like the choices of like, why have they chosen that team? You know, why have they chose Courtois in goal? Or why have they chose...
Will you sit down with them and get some idea why they've done that?
For sure. I think because the people that are watching, right, play this game like casually, competitively, and they want to know why is Mbappe the fastest player in the game? You know, why is, for example, like Didier Drogba right now is like one of the most sort of popular icons in the game, and it's like, why is Didier Drogba the most popular icon in the game? Because he's got like certain traits in the game. Like, one, he's obviously big, he's strong, he's fast, but he's got like a certain type of like shot type that is going in more than others. So it's like there are really small intricacies. So you've got to blend all of this into commentary. Yes, you're 100% right that where the ball is on the pitch is so important. But I also try not to fall into the habit of like going, you know, this player's passed to this player, because it's...
Yeah, because you can see that
people
for
can
yourself,
see it as
can't
well.
you?
Yeah, so it's I just 100% hear what you're saying. It's like you still try and figure out, and you're trying to get the right bits from a co-commentator as well. Like you don't want them to feel like they have to overspeak or speak all the time. You just try and get them at the right times. When I say co-commentator, for me, I'm speaking about like ex-pro players that play EAFC, or could be someone that's been a former world champion, and it's like seeing the game through their lens, like as any traditional sport is.
And how long's the game?
So they've just changed it, so it's 9-minute halves now that we play.
Halves,
So like to everyone that's probably listening and watching, they probably play like 6-minute halves, but they've changed it to 9-minute halves because the way they used to play it, they used to do 2 games and an aggregate scoreline.
Okay.
But like for people that are watching, they didn't really get it. Like why is this happening? So they've changed it to 9-minute halves. So it's a little bit more slower, and there's a little bit more sort of tactics to it, and pauses, and all these smaller intricacies that are coming in, so to speak.
And have you had to change your style slightly because it's longer?
Yes, because it's not as much of a rush anymore, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot more to talk about, and you can let the game
Breathe.
As crazy as it sounds, you can let the game breathe. You can.
So we need to kind of pin down your love of the Albion. You were born in Chichester, weren't you?
Yes.
And so was coming to Brighton to watch the Albion. Is that how you fell in love with football?
Mm-hmm.
So my story of my love of Brighton of Albion was I used to basically go to Albion in the community sessions, like, you know, Wednesday nights, pay £3, and that was down in like Chichester Way, where it was just good fun. And then we heard about, you know, fan days at the Withdean. I think 2019 was the year I started to basically go from, you know, following all the big clubs at the time, you could argue, and being like, oh wow, you know, they're fantastic. Let's just say, for example, Manchester United at the time, you know, like Louis Saha to Alan Smith, you know, like, oh my God, like they're Cristiano Ronaldo. But then the fact that I could like go down the road and go to the Withdean and meet Lewis Dunk, I think Craig Davies at the time, you know,
Yeah, I remember that.
Kazenga Lawalawa, and meet them pitch side at the Withdean. And I'm like, this is unbelievable, right? And I'm not paying a penny for this. I'm just a young fan that signed up to the club membership. So that was 2019. Went to a couple of games. It was in the transition point where Gus Poyet came in, and we actually started to pass the ball, which was quite nice for us.
2009.
Yeah.
Not 19.
Sorry. 2009. Yeah, sorry, not 2019. 2009. And I started to go to a few games, and then Gus Poyet came in, started to change the way. And you could argue, like, I don't really have, like, people say, who's your commentator that inspires you? Like, it's crazy to say, but I don't really have a style. But one man that I always listened to was Johnny Cantor.
Oh, no.
BBC Sussex.
Don't say that to me, that would
He's just jumped out of his chair, Johnny Cantor.
And
he's going to be so happy.
But because I didn't always get to go to the games, and for me it was, I put in this terrible MP3 radio, and I would put it in, listen to BBC Sussex, you know, FA Cup away days at Aston Villa, you know, when we lost, I think was it in the semi-finals against Luton Town in a Johnson's Paint Trophy, I think it might have been.
Yeah.
And I used to just follow the club like that, and like the way he told the story, and that was a sort of commentator, one of the few commentators I could sit here and say, you know what, I listened to a lot of him, and I really appreciated his style. So, sorry, back to the point. I think it was FA Cup games I started to get to the Withdean on, because it was so cheap. It was £5 a ticket, and it was the days where it was a Glenn Murray Chris Wood duo up top.
Yeah.
And that was an unbelievable duo up top.
It aged well, that duo. Ashley Barnes as well,
Yeah.
that was the trio.
Well, Chris Wood's still
And
going,
I've got one for you. Who do you think is my favourite ever Brighton player? He was a centre midfielder. He recently just got a managerial job.
I know who it is.
Who is it?
Gary Dicker.
Gary Dicker.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
He scored an absolute unbelievable goal against Exeter at the Withdean from like 35, 40 yards out, and it was.
I can't remember that.
You can't remember that goal, but yeah, it was unbelievable. And I just, I think they played Bognor Regis Town in the friendly once, and I got to meet him and Andrew Wing sharing a car, and I was like, you know, that was
That's
like,
right, yeah.
oh my God.
They used to both live down at the marina, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dixie was a good player, a very good player at that level. He could see your pass. He was, yeah.
I don't know why. I just at that time he was the guy that I just really loved watching at the club, and yeah. So I went to the FA Cup games, and when the Amex was being built, I wanted a bit of that. So I was the first person to have my seat at the Amex. I think it was W1C on the West Stand, front row. I had a season ticket for 2 years. So we had made that transition into the Championship, that famous game against Doncaster, Will Buckley.
Wow, this is serious, like granular
Yeah.
support. I didn't expect you to have that level of knowledge and commitment and history with the club.
I'll be honest, like, don't get me wrong, my last few years as a fan has been pretty terrible for
Yeah,
me.
you got busy.
Just because I'm just so busy. Like, I had to give up the season ticket when I went to Manchester, but I've had some unbelievable memories. And when we went back up to the Premier League, Championship away days in Manchester, I went to Blackburn away. When we were in the Premier League, I went to Man City away, but we never got a result back then. And then as it unfolded, I actually was a ball boy for the club for a period of time. The season where Ajoa was just ridiculous. I think we beat Huddersfield maybe 6-1 at home. There was a ridiculous scoreline there. By the way, for being a ball boy, I've never felt pressure. Because we used to get told, I'll tell you this now, we used to get told, like, away team, you roll it back and don't rush, especially when we're winning games. Yeah. And then for the home team, you make sure the lads get it in their hands. They don't have to bend down. I was like, oh my God, if I don't throw this ball to Matt Upson properly, he's going to pull his hamstring. And like, honestly, I used to get in my head so much about it. But yeah, honestly, I've had a crazy journey with the club and would love to get there a bit more than I have recently. And yeah, it's been crazy.
So when Brighton nearly won the Premier League title last year, did you feel invested in that? Correct me if I'm wrong, they beat Liverpool in the semi-final and lost to City in the final. Did you feel a bit invested in that game?
Absolutely. Again, I couldn't get to that. I think my family.
Do people know who your team is? Or
yes,
not? They do. Okay,
they might do, but also I'm not a. I don't get to as many games. I don't really shout about it too much, right? But also, I'm not going to say that I'm a diehard fan, right? Like, my knowledge is certainly up and down. But yeah, the club has been on a crazy journey, and I'd say my favourite player right now. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Jorginho Rutter. He's a bit of a FIFA man as well, I think. But I think Lewis Dunk is just what a man. Yeah. Play for Bognor Regis Town, like, it's just gone through the ranks of this club and just bleeds blue and white.
He does indeed.
If you were picking your own Premier League team, how many Brighton players would be in it?
Truthfully,
honestly, probably Jorginho. I think he's got like a special promo item at the moment in the game.
Right.
To be fair, Ferdy's got a decent item as well. He's got like 91 pace, I think. I think he was in shock about it too. But yeah, the problem we've always had as a club, in the nice way until recent years, is we didn't really get any special players. Yeah. Like, so our players were just gold and silver and mainly bronze. So like the fact that we are getting, like, last year we had, I think Matoma got into the team of the season, or was a nominee. We actually had a decent player in there, which again is pretty unheard of for the club. And like recently we've been getting team of the week. João Pedro's in team of the week quite a lot. So it's a lot better time, you could argue, to be a EAFC player as a Brighton fan.
Yeah, I need to pin you down while you're on here about my speed on the game back in the day.
Look, Glenn, I don't make the stats, but I'll be honest.
I'm not going to lie, it was a sore point.
There's been many times that I've wanted to use when I've played with Brighton in the past, and I have to say, mate, you've had to be subbed off, and I've had to shove a Kazenga Lawalawa or Matoma or someone up top just to give me some pace. Like, let's be honest, strikers wise, we didn't. Tomer Hamed, not fast. Glenn Murray, sorry, not fast.
Yeah, but there was a point where I was at like 57 or 61 or something. I was like, this is just, it's ridiculous.
It's just a thing with players looking at their numbers.
So before the season, EA come in and I reckon they've got like 40 cameras on all different levels, and they scan all your facial recognition and all that, and they sort of build a digital profile.
They forget to scan your pace then, or?
Well, no, we didn't get out of the chair. That's where they got it all wrong. They should have come in the dome with us.
And that's the thing, is like, I don't know how they judge. Like, have they ever come up to you and said,
my argument is, right, I think who would have been on the fastest on the game back then? Would it have been like an Adama Traore?
Adama Traore, probably like 90 something pace.
Right.
Yeah.
So say if I was 60 and he was 90, so effectively he's pretty much 100. I wouldn't have finished 40 metres behind him in a 100-metre sprint.
No.
So therefore the game is void. I want an apology.
I'd love to see you race Mbappe. Maybe when you peak fitness and
Mbappe. Yeah, that would be a bit of a struggle. That,
but it'd just be good to see, like, realistically, like, what does a 90+ pace player look like compared to whatever.
And they can't measure the speed of your brain, either, can they?
That is one thing they can't probably see, and that's one thing the game doesn't measure.
Yeah.
Vision. It's a stat.
Is it a stat now?
Yeah, it's a stat. I mean, it's not a front stat, but it's a back stat.
Okay.
What about decision making? They can't measure that, can they?
I think that's in there. I don't know how they'd measure it, but like it's about 60 stats now. You can be from free kick accuracy to strength to jumping to vision to aggression.
I wonder how they get all that information and who sort of deciphers it.
Well, believe it or not, there are actually scouts that go to games and they'll like track players' performances. Like, obviously it varies from club to club, but I actually know people that did it as a job, and like they are basically entitled to choose the ratings of the players.
Wow. I need to meet the Brighton one.
So this is like a massively expanding global industry. What's the ceiling for it?
That is incredible, that, isn't it? The scouts out there for a year.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. I can't even.
Well, the same for like Football Manager. I think they do the same sort of thing. You know, they does the game updates and stuff. They just try and get as much intel as possible.
Yeah. So what's the ceiling for this industry? Because it's grown phenomenally.
It's difficult because I feel like we've touched the ceiling, we've come down a bit, and then we're sort of in a rebuild phase now. Like, I think it was about when I first started 7 years ago. I remember after like 1 year, I said, I reckon one day we're going to have a Champions League for this, like an E-Champions League, where all the clubs that have players will meet. And we've had an E-Champions League since 2019, and it happens year after year again. For those that are probably thinking, what the hell is an E-Champions League? It's the Champions League, but on the virtual pitch. And
so just run us through how somebody would get in the E-Champions League.
Yeah. So, for example, the best way I can explain it is, say you want to play for Brighton Hove Albion, right? Which I think at the time of recording this, you could qualify to represent the club to play in the E-Premier League. The E-Premier League is a £100,000 tournament which takes place every single year around March, April time. It's live on Sky Sports, and every club has two players. One player on the PlayStation, one player on the Xbox. So you basically play in a qualifier, try and qualify for your console for the club. You then go into playing the Premier League for Brighton against the 19 other clubs that have all got an Xbox player and a PlayStation player. If you finish in the top two, so if you make the grand final, which Brighton did do last year, you qualify for the E-Champions League, which is a $280,000 tournament, which takes place a month later, and you will meet again the top four clubs from La Liga, the top two clubs from Serie A, the top two clubs from the virtual Bundesliga. Very similar to traditional football, but you meet their EAFC pro players, and you play in another tournament where you go from 32 in a group stage or 24 in a group stage down to the top 16, down to the top 8, and if you win that, then you get, I think, about $75,000, and you become the E-Champions League champion. And I think you get to go literally on the pitch of the Champions League final, and you get to lift your trophy at half time as well, plus all the other perks that come with it, and all the money as well, which is pretty crazy.
So what is the setup? Are they in touch and distance of each other when they're playing one another?
Yeah, so like, for example, all the players flying. So for example, it's normally in London we do a lot of this. So in London last year, we had 3 different weekends in a row. So first weekend was all the players flying. We're live for 2 days. Again, we're live on Twitch and YouTube. And for context, we're getting anywhere between 100 to 300,000 live people watching.
Christ.
Right? And again, other tournaments like the Premier League is on Sky Sports. So in the international breaks, it's on Sky Sports for the weekend. As much as people are flicking through, and it always makes me laugh when I go on like social media and all the Sky Sports like membership payers are thinking, what is this that's on my screen this weekend? And like they're thinking, what on earth they're watching? But get some crazy viewership. They're all in the same room playing. Again, they get flown in, flights paid for, hotel paid for.
Does it ever get heated in there, like emotions?
We want it to get more heated. Everyone's a bit too nicey nice at the moment. We're playing for a lot of money here, like, and you're representing your club. And for the fans that do care about this and follow it, there is conversations to be had about, when Brighton play Palace, we try and heat it up a little bit in the Premier League, and it should have more rivalry than it does. So yeah, sometimes it gets a bit heated, but a lot of the time it's everyone's quite respectful.
Okay. Even though there's like large amounts of money on the line. Yeah,
I think just because people know, as crazy as it sounds, how it feels to be on both ends of the scale when you're winning and losing, at such fine margins for such large amounts of money. But there has been a few times where it gets a little bit heated, but I'm all for it. I mean, it's entertainment, it's competition.
Yeah, you've got to have edge. So, humour an old fella for a minute. Are you an influencer, and how do you define an influencer? Because I can't define it quite.
So I'd say, firstly, like, I appreciate that. Look, I've got a decent social following online, but I really hate to be known for like being an influencer. I would love to be known as like commentator number one, to be known for having a skill in something, and then off the back of that, I appreciate that there is an influencer side to it as well. So when I say influencer, I mean, you know, a great case study is like I've got 3 million followers on social media. I've got an audience that follow me that are like between like 13 to 30 years of age that have got an interest in gaming and football. So a sponsor might come to me like PlayStation, and they'll be like, look, you've got the audience that we really want to unlock. We'll pay you to promote this tournament that's happening this day because we know that your audience would be interested. So that's how a social media influencer, I guess, could work, and that's sort of the extra bonus opportunities that I get. And I also think, for example, like with Brighton, hopefully next year as we go into the Premier League, I feel like I've got a great opportunity to unlock the door for the club, for me to come in and, you know, when the guys get new promo items in the game, you know, Jorginho got himself like a promo card like a couple of months ago, and he was loving it. And like, you know how it is as a former player, like when you get a special Team of the Year card or a Team of the Year item, and you got a crazy stat in game, it blows my mind how these guys are getting crazy amounts of money. They're playing in the Premier League, they're playing on TV, but they are so happy with getting the game early and so happy with their stats in the game. It blows my mind. Like, for a bit of context, I used to be really friendly with Neil Maupay. We spoke.
He played in it, didn't he?
We played online a few times, and he's a joke, by the way, and he spent a lot of money on the game. Like, he had a 4-icon team. But we had a bit of fun, and it was like, we played live on stream. He's got a ridiculous team. Off the back of it, he actually invited me and my whole family to come watch a game, which was really nice of him. And we actually FaceTimed a few times because he was trying to get into streaming. Like, he wanted to go live streaming. So I was helping him like set his setup and stuff. And like, again, to have contact with a professional footballer that, you know, is very successful, but is so interested and loves playing this PlayStation, it was crazy.
Yeah, well, the boys carry the like briefcases around now.
I've got one of those, but to take it around all the time, it's a bit of faff
sometimes. Are you a good player?
Average. That's why I commentate, because I never was going to make it as a pro. But I play a lot, and you need to play a lot to stay updated with the game. But I would say, you know, if we played right now, I'd be comfortable, you know?
I'd hope so.
Can you play, Glenn? Are you any good at this?
Well, no, I mean, you beat your kids until a certain age and they start beating you, and then then you stop picking it up.
So I'm curious about players coming off the training ground, coming away from the stadium and wanting to play football in a different form.
Oh, yeah, they love it.
Right, why?
Why? Because I think like any young lad, and this is even me, like, obviously not to this extent, but when I was growing up, it was, you know, it was the earlier PlayStations. You play FIFA all the time, just with your friends, and then obviously developed into being able to play against your friends when they were on their own console in their own house, and it's just another development. But what's happening now, and it's like, I think as young lads, you play computer growing up, and then eventually somehow you turn into professional footballers for real, and you still do the things that you enjoyed doing before that, and there's no better way than getting together with your teammates, like, even if you're not physically in the same place, they're all online together.
So what would coaches make of that? Would they not be saying to you, well, just leave it, you know, don't forget football for a bit?
They would, but that would be a different generation of culture.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to accept that people have grown up with this, and that is there. But so say like an older person might, I don't know what you do, Paul, but
you mean it's like a Tony Pulis or a Neil Warnock would not want you playing.
No, they'll be like, your eyes will be getting tired. But it's like how one generation will go and knock TV on and watch TV, and another generation will, like, they'll sit down and their downtime and their rest time is playing.
But like, you're right. It's like, for a player, like, what can you do to unwind? You know, like, in a smart and sensible way, you know, then go out and on the weekend, or in a nice way, just sit in and watch TV or play your PlayStation.
See, I've had one player, right, and I'll never forget this. So we were playing, I think it was like West Ham or something, at a 12 o'clock kickoff in the Premier League on a Saturday afternoon. And this kid comes down, I can't name him, he comes down and he looks terrible. I'm like, what have you been doing? He's like, man, I've been up till 4 o'clock in the morning playing PlayStation. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, well,
and this is before a Premier League game.
Yeah. Was it at home or was it away?
It was an away game, so he was
playing in the hotel?
Yeah.
Well, there was a very high profile player that I won't name recently, developed a problem with that, and the manager was saying this is why his performance is so poor, because he's up till 3-4 in the morning playing these games. You know, I'm not saying that's not disparaging the games, but I'm just saying It's not a
It
switch off.
It could be up to 3-4 in the morning doing a lot worse, Paul.
Like in the old days.
Yeah, exactly that.
A great example is Diogo Jota. So Diogo Jota's got his own esports team, where he basically pays a player to represent his team, and they won like the Esports World Cup in August this year, and he won like $300,000 his player, and he was the guy that recently got sold on to Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia for, I think, maybe about £200,000. They signed a pro gamer for
Off
Jota's team.
So they paid Jota for his services.
Basically, he's in a contract with a player, and they need to get him out of the contract. So there's a buyout clause, like even for these guys. Like,
so he sold his player to Saudi Arabia. Diogo Jota did. Yeah.
Well, not maybe was it him directly? I don't know. I think he's more of an investor in the team, but I think
the company did.
Yeah. To basically put there and the money that guy could be earning. I mean, again, I don't know how much he's on, but there's been people that get paid per month to do this, anywhere between really low. You're talking about £1,000 a month to about £20,000 a month.
God, that's astonishing.
So just humour me, right? So a professional player, what kind of hours will they put in per day practicing on the game?
This is the thing. It's like, what does that contract include? Because it used to be a case of all you did was just play the game, right? And it's up to you how much you play.
Yeah.
We expect you to do well in certain tournaments, but now, and I always say this to players that I speak to, is like, you can't just be a player now. You need to be like an influencer. You need to be a streamer and content creator, because the sponsors is where the money is, right? The people pumping in the money, like the sponsors from drink companies to, PlayStation to, whoever makes the kit, so to speak, as well, controllers, headsets. So you've got to basically try and tick all the boxes within your monthly retainer. But to answer your question, how do people play? It's one of them. It's like, the stigma is that people think that these guys will play for like 12 hours a day. Like the world champion last year played maybe like 2 games a day, like under about an hour a day. Like
what, 2 18-minute games a day?
Like because he'd rather, his words were generally he wants to play when he wants to play. Like if he overdoes it, he'll lose the love for it, which again sounds crazy to say. And obviously you ramp that up before a tournament, but like, he would have had days off, and he wouldn't have had to sit there and play for 8 hours, which I think a lot of people think that these guys do. Like everyone's got different ways and different lifestyles.
Do you think there's going to be another generation that can see like a clear pathway to a career and a living that are going to like hammer it?
There are
like,
some people
like more professionally.
Yeah, there are some people that do that though already as well, for sure. There's like these 16-year-olds coming through. I think it's like a 13-year-old in Germany somewhere who's like winning convincingly, and this guy must be getting putting some crazy hours in. So I think everyone's got a different approach, but there's burnout there for sure, like to stay and play that long. Do you know what I mean? And it's a massive sacrifice to make. But one of the guys I'm speaking about here was world champion last year, got X amount of million followers, and he's made $700,000 in prize money in under 2 years playing. And he's also on probably an incredible contract every single month. If that man wanted to stop, if he never won a tournament again, he's got a career there of just his brand and his name value of like, we've got world champion from this year, and if he just turns up to whatever deliverables he's got to do for brands and media, like he's like a front facing pro player in this industry.
And this is only going to continue, isn't it? Because this generation is going to get older, kind of thing, and then the next generation so it's only going to get bigger and bigger.
I think the key thing is about all of this is like about esports and gaming in general. Like it's all marketing, right? The marketing is that they want people to buy the game and spend more money in the game. That's the marketing of it, right? And how we get that marketing is by doing all these tournaments and doing all these great things such as Premier League. And again, don't be wrong, there's fantastic brand awareness for the Premier League and for the clubs, and opportunities to give back to fans. But this generation that are coming through now, you've just got to think like, where are we? We're on TikTok, we're on YouTube, we're not really listening to the radio, unfortunately, not anymore BBC Sussex.
You've killed Johnny Cantor.
Sorry, Johnny.
And we're not lifted him up and dropped him down.
We're not watching traditional TV, I mean, it's just, that's why the brands are pumping in the money and how it's happening now is because you've just got to find this demographic of people in just such a different way, and that is literally a merge of gaming, social media, and supposedly like a Netflix or catch-up TV, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're talking about a really big societal change as well, aren't you? Not just recreation. You're talking about how communication works.
It's just how how the young person now lives their life. You know, like sometimes, don't get me wrong, like I just get, you have to balance it. Like I get sick of sort of social media sometimes. You just want to, like, you know, get on, do what you got to do and get out, sort of thing. I mean, I don't know how it was for you. I mean, social media for you didn't really seem to be all over it, so to speak.
No, as a player, I think you're just so kind of focused week to week, game to game.
On the out, coming off the backside now, do you feel like you wish you built more or not?
Possibly, but I also think it's a generational thing where, like, younger people than me, so like maybe 10, 15 years younger than me, they've grown up with it, so it comes not more naturally to them. Sure. Whereas my generation, I was just like, I was a little bit older, so it's not quite as easy for me, I would say. And I also think it boils down to the person. There's some people like more private, some people are just outgoing and just willing for everyone to know everything. And I was like, why would anyone be interested in what I'm doing, kind of thing? And the other thing is, to your question, is I don't think I realised the reach of the Premier League until I retired and got into the media side of it. When you're in it, it's so localised and so small and just engaging in a certain group of people and just like moving around the country trying to get points. And it's glamorous, don't get me wrong, on a Saturday afternoon, it's amazing, like full houses and that, but I didn't realise how far it spread across the world and the interest in the actual Premier League. Just
finally, Brandon, there'll be people listening to this who kind of want to follow your path in some form into the world that you're in. You're successful in a business sense as well as, you know, your following and your actual commentary skills. So what tips would you give young people listening to this podcast to find their own way into this industry? I would say, you know, just give it a go. I'd say number one is, like, if you like something and you think you want to give it a go, because if you're obsessed about it that much, you know, I was obsessed about trying to make this a thing. I remember my parents sat me down, you know, after one year of university, till 2 more to go, and I was commentating at the time for about £2.50 an hour. I think I got like a £400 paycheck to commentate for 14 weeks, but I was doing it because I loved it. And my dad was like, so what are you actually going to do when you finish uni? Thinking, like, why am I commentating on FIFA at the time? And I said to him, I looked him in the eyes and went, I promise you, I will make this a living and I'll do this. And a great story I've got is this one, to be honest. I used to work as a lifeguard when I was not at university, so I'd work 6 days a week and I'd work 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon. I'm on poolside. This is during sort of my first sort of year breaking out in commentary. Get a call from Amsterdam, and it's Ajax on the phone saying, hi Brandon, we've seen some of your work you've been doing recently. This is like 2 or 3 months into me commentating on my first
and stuff. Do you think this is genuine, or you're worried to prank?
At this point I was like, well, the accent was too good to be and they went, we've got €800 for you to come to the Johan Cruyff Arena this Saturday, which is my only day off in the week. We want you and your friend Richard Buckley, who was my co-commentator from university. €800, flights, hotel, and whatever you got left is your money. So I'll ring Richard up, put on poolside, just as the day finishes on poolside. Don't worry, no one's drowning.
Hold on a second, I'm trying to contemplate how you haven't walked out on the poolside completely. I'm done with that.
I think we're cleaning down at the time, and I've said to him, right, they want us this Saturday. What are you up to? He's free. So we go on, book the flights, €400 gone. At this point, we're like, should we get a hotel or just do an all-nighter? So I remember I left on Saturday morning on my day off from the pool at 7 a.m. in the morning, getting to Amsterdam, work all day, fantastic tournament, went really well. We stay on a player's room's floor just for the night because we're up at 6 a.m. to fly back, because I was going back to work at 10 a.m. on Sunday. So we've made about €200 each. We're buzzing off it. And I'm back on poolside Sunday morning at 10 a.m., you know, and that was one of the real graft stories that I'm so proud of. And, like, you know, to make €200 that day was like, Jesus, mate, that was a crazy thing. So I'd say, back to the story is, just give it a go. Find something you're really passionate about, give it a go. And, you know, you might not think that you can do it, but just go for it. And if your passion's there and your work ethic's there, it will happen for you.
I think we've both learned a lot from this conversation. So thanks for joining us, Brandon, and best of luck. Maybe one day we'll be listening to you on television or radio.
Maybe. Thank you for having me.